the travesty and tragedy of a nation in Central Caribbean, which has been devastated by one of the worst hurricanes seen in the not too distant past. And that is our friends in Jamaica. I have already reached out to my colleague, Minister, and I would thank Barbados wishes in terms of support. What I want to say is that if there was any confirmation needed in my brain as to the reason why we should be on the front foot, unrelenting in our efforts to have cities included as a special and vulnerable category, the answer is right before us in Jamaica, based on the devastation that all of us would have witnessed. The answer is being provided by the effects, the adverse effects in Haiti, Cuba, and what is likely to happen in the Bahamas. If you needed confirmation as to the reason why we as regional ministers are adamant that small and developing states and their special circumstances should be acknowledged, recognized, and that special consideration should be given at all the declarations, the answer lies before our eyes because of the acute devastations and chronic MSC due to what I would call a bipolar climate crisis. In Jamaica, prior to the devastation that we are witnessing, they had temperatures of 31 degrees Celsius earlier in the month. 31 degrees Celsius, very hot. And in a couple of weeks, the devastation of a hurricane that has not only caused the loss of infrastructure, the loss of communities, but sadly, the loss of lives. This is a stark reminder that leaders and policymakers must move unequivocally to ensure that we are not only recognized, but that our special circumstances require the international community to respond. Because the reality, like Jamaica, like Cuba, like Haiti, like Bahamas, and all of us in the region, we contribute very little to the crisis that are unfolding before us. Very little. Barbados, for instance, 2 million tons of carbon dioxide based on our NDC. The world over 40 to 50 billion tons. Just a thought. But we were exposed to the ravages of Hurricane Barbados July last year that we are still recovering from in our fishing industry. It will take Jamaica a long time to recover from the vagaries of a hurricane at Category 5. It is no longer a need for us. It is a right. It is a right because, as I said, we contribute very little, if anything at all, to the whole climate crisis. Yet, we feel the most devastating part. And that is why we are asking equally, not only to be recognized for our special circumstances, but to be given the opportunity to have the financial wherewithal to build back and build forward. That is absolutely critical for us. And that is why the British Initiative piloted, of course, by our Prime Minister. It's so important not only for Barbados, because it is minus insularity. Not only for Barbados, but for the entire region. We must have the architecture that says to the rest of the world, when events happen, when we are building our resilience, our adaptation and mitigation, that we need to be able to access finance at concessional rate. Just like those big countries. Those big countries who I would very unapologetically saying are major contributors to the global warming and the climate crisis that we face. It is us in the region who are devastated. Our families are devastated. Our infrastructures are devastated. And as I said, worst of all, we are losing lives. The immediacy of a response is critical. The immediacy of a response. I was happy that the Loss and Damage Fund made a decision at the last board meeting that they will provide that immediate response to countries, and that 50% of the fund must be allocated to states and LDCs. I think that is a breakthrough moment. But right now in Jamaica, they need access to funds. They need immediate responses. The Prime Minister in Jamaica now has to be a political contortionist when it comes to funds. That which would have been spent in the health sector, that which would have been given for social services, must now be used to save lives and rebuild. Unfortunately, that is why Barbados has committed to doing that which we would consider right and just, lending assistance to our brothers and sisters in Jamaica. We are one family, and that's how we operate as PISLM and the group of ministers. I'm happy to take over from Alfred Prosper, my counterpart in St. Lucia, and to have that Usain Bolt moment with the baton as it relates to how we treat the PISLM. PISLM is the perfect example. And the word partnership is not to be used whimsically, because the partnership that exists with PISLM across the region is one that could be the blueprint for any organization who is serious about representing people and sustaining livelihoods. You all can clap. PISLM is the perfect example of regional unity. And when we as ministers speak on behalf of PISLM, we speak in one voice. Although Alfred may sound a little more fancy than myself in terms of his speech. But we speak in one voice because we understand the principle. The Secretariat works in unison with all the ministers in all the countries. We are single focused, and I want to openly thank GEF and GCF for lending the support. They have been partners, they have been the bedrock of what we do in terms of our land management. The world over has spoken about a triple planetary crisis. I want to be clear today that it's not longer a triple planetary crisis. There is now, I want to say it, there is now a fourth crisis that is before us. I call it the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. And that, my friends, is the land degradation and desertification that we face. Put that on the list. It's not only climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution as we know it, land degradation and desertification. And that is why the work of PISLM, as outlined by our new director, who has the sinew to carry the organization forward. And he outlaid all the plans, all the work that has been done, phase 1 and phase 2, all the structure, original unity in terms of lab support, geospatial mapping, all those things that we are doing to ensure that we have the arable land. Scientists predict that within the next 50 years, 60 years, if we continue on this trajectory, we will not have the arable soil to buttress our agriculture industry. And came down to a garden my biodiversity specialist will tell us, without the soil, you won't have the biodiversity either. You won't have the trees. Your work is important work. And that is why we want to commend you for the work that you have been doing thus far. And I want to encourage you to continue with unreserved sweat expenditure. Continue to do the good work. But I also equally want to say that what is happening in Jamaica and the effects in Haiti, Cuba, and Bahamas is what we see acutely. We see it and we feel it. We hear our families complain about the adverse effects. Our family in the region. Barbados hit us last year, and I felt the pain of the official. We still haven't recovered. Vagaries that we face. But trust me, just as devastating, but not immediately felt, are the chronic vagaries and adverse effect of climate change. The chronic and adverse effects of the things that we may not see that affect us immediately, like biodiversity loss, like ocean acidification, and equally like land degradation and desertification. And if we don't have the response equally to those chronic effects, then the fight now will be a fight for, unfortunately, our children and our children's children. There's a saying that evil prevailing, good men sit and do nothing. I want him to encourage the good men, the good, pious, and consecrated men, to debunk that maxim, because we know that in PISLM, we will not leave this fight for our children and our children's children. We have the good men here, good women, to stand and fight on behalf of the people in the region, so that land degradation and the threats will become something of the distant past. I want to thank you. I want to encourage to have a wonderful meeting. I want to ask God's blessing on the proceeding. Have a wonderful